Good evening. I'll call this meeting to order and ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for attending tonight's meeting. We will begin with a recognition of National Merit Scholar, Sandy.
Thank you. And specifically, these are National Merit Scholar finalists. We have 2 in the district. Very exciting. So, Emily? Not here? And I don't think I saw Jackson either. All right. We still want to make sure that we take note of their accomplishment. Just so we all know, the National Merit Scholarship Program is an academic competition for recognition and scholarships that began in 1955. So back in their junior year, our students then took the SAT, and that set a group of qualifying students. From there, just now this year in early September, there were 16,000 semifinalists, and you might remember they were both here at that point. And now just recently, in February 2014, they notified then, again, based on looking at academics and other indicators, the finalist category. And so we have both Jack Cadillo and Emily Schertz. So we want to say congratulations to both of them.
Neither one are here today? Jack or Emily, are you here?
They don't want to jinx.
Well, we certainly want to congratulate them and thank them for their hard work. So,
thank you.
Okay, moving on then to winter athletics.
Yes, I think most of us could tell with all the students out in the audience tonight. So we'll bring our athletic directors, Stephanie DeVos, forward, and she'll, I know she always has an order on who'll speak and introduce each of the sports, the winter sports.
Thank you. Can everybody and then you guys just take a step forward. You guys come up. Second row, come up. We're all going to be up front.
Okay.
We typically do this in April, but because of the high number of participants in spring sports, it's hard to get a hold of them on a Tuesday night. So we decided our winter sports season's just ended, so we decided to go in March here. At this time, I'd like to introduce to you Cheyenne Massey. Cheyenne will be the master of ceremonies here for the sports seasons.
Hello, as Ms. DeVos said, I'm Cheyenne Massey. I'm a senior. I'm the president of AMP, and I've been with Ms. DeVos for 4 years, and I'm excited to bring you the news of our winter athletics. First, we'd like to start off by congratulating Sydney Squires. Sydney was named the Girls Hockey Wisconsin Prep Athlete of the Week for the week of January 13th. She was voted by 29 of the 33 coaches from Wisconsin. Sydney had 9 goals within 2 games, so we're really excited for her because that's a great accomplishment. And here she is.
We're putting Sydney on the spot here. Today she came into my office, and a lot of these coaches associations, they will vote on all conference or all state honors, and we oftentimes are the last ones to hear about it. But she came to me today, and I would like to congratulate Sydney for being named first team All-State. That's a huge accomplishment for girls hockey, as our girls hockey is on the upturn. So thank you, Sydney, and congratulations. You'll hear more about this later here.
We'd also like to congratulate 6 other athletes, Jared Johnson and Matt Wang for signing to Bemidji State for football, Sydney Squires going to the U of M for soccer, Ellen Snyder going to the U of M for cross country, and also a while ago, Miles Lewis signed to University of North Dakota for baseball, and Alex Herink is going to Mankato State for basketball. So that is also really great for them. We'd also like to congratulate the girls and boys cross country coach for being the Big Rivers Conference Sportsmanship Award, and that's voted on by all the coaches in the conference. Our hockey coaches, Greg Gamache for the girls and Brooks Lockwood for the boys, were also nominated for the 2013-2014 Wisconsin High School Coaches of the Year. Elliot Motu and Aaron Wetstein were nominated to represent Hudson High School at the WIAA Scholar Athletes. That is having a cumulative GPA of at least 3.0, and the nominees are considered for the WIAA, with winners being selected later this spring. So congratulations to Elliot and Aaron. For sports, we're going to start off with boys basketball. The boys team was placed 3rd in the conference, coached by Jason Swavely. They were also regional champs this year, with 3 boys making conference teams, and we have some boys here to talk about that for you.
Could Coach Swavely please come up as well? And you guys, come on up. Can you ever guess that he would be a basketball player?
I'd just like to introduce, these are 3 of our senior captains, Reed Schweckler, Jake Giordana, and Alex Herink, and Miles Lewis is not here tonight. He's doing some baseball stuff. I'm going to let them kind of summarize the season, but I just wanted to say a couple things. And we don't normally put the individual accomplishments first, but Alex Herink has had an unbelievable career here at Hudson, and you heard that he's going to Mankato State, but I just wrote down a couple notes here. He scored his 1,000th point in our 3rd game of the season this year. He's one of 7 players in Hudson High School history to achieve that accomplishment. And then in our final home game in the regional championship, he scored he's got 1,462 total points, which put him as the leading scorer all time in Hudson High School history, boys history that is. So an awesome accomplishment at a Division I school. And so I'm just really proud of his efforts.
All right, so for just our season accomplishments, we finished the season 7-5 in the Big Rivers Conference. We were 12-9 overall, and we got the 2 seed in playoffs for our tournament. And then we finished on a 6-game winning streak until losing to Marshfield in our final game.
All right. Other things we did, we finished 14-10, putting us with a winning record there. We captured the regional championship with a home win over Eau Claire Memorial, which was really nice. We developed a great team chemistry throughout the year, and towards the end of the year, we kind of hit our good stride where everything was going our way, and that's the best time of year to hit our stride for basketball. So,
we had 4 people get all academic BRC with a GPA of 3.5 or higher, which were Jake Niederhauser, Aaron Stein, Miles Lewis, and Brigham Knott. And Alex Herink earned first team All Big Rivers Conference Award. And Matt Sparset and Jake Giordana also earned honorable mention All BRC. And we are graduating 7 seniors this year, so the Raiders will be looking for a new group of leaders next season.
there you go.
Okay, moving on to girls basketball, coached by Joe Benke. Continued to grow this season, having their best season in 10 years. They're a pretty young team, and I think we have some representatives here to tell you about that.
As I mentioned, I'm Coach Benke. It's my second year with the girls program, and I brought Maggie Kaler, our junior captain, and JJ Huber, our other junior captain. Our lone senior, we had one senior on our team this year. She got sick today, and so she couldn't be here. Too bad, too, because she hurt herself, blew her ACL out in her last 3 games to go in our season, and so she really got a kind of a taste of real life and how unfair it can be at some times. So too bad she couldn't be here, but Maggie and JJ will summarize our season for us.
Okay, our season was way more successful than last year, and our record doesn't show how much success we've actually had. We've improved so much, and we ended our season on a high level against Superior. They are said to be in the state championship this year, and we kept with them the whole game until the fourth quarter when they made a run, and that was unfortunate, but we ended very strong.
I'm just going to ask you to step real close to that mic so everybody in TV land can hear you too. So.
Okay, is this good?
Oh,
No.
sorry.
No?
A little
Here?
closer, yeah.
Okay,
There you go.
we're good?
Good.
Okay, well, we became a family over the season, and it'll be weird being apart from each other. But the stuff we did in practice will help us in the future, like communicating, being flexible, and working with others, and hopefully that rubbed off on the younger kids when we worked at the youth camps. But I'm gonna miss the season, but really excited for next year. So Maggie and I and Katie are really proud to represent Hudson girls basketball.
Thank you.
Next is cheerleading. I don't know if we have anyone here to talk about that tonight, but they cheered at basketball games and wrestling matches and tournaments. They defended their title as the Wow Factor Sports National Champions in our division, and they also participated in a lot of other tournaments, placing really well in those. Hudson Cheer and Stunt is graduating 11 seniors this year, so it'll be sad to see them go, but they are ready for a successful season next year because they are having tryouts today. That's why no one's here. On to gymnastics, coached by Christina Harstead. At their Hudson Invitational, they took first out of 7 teams. They also had 4 athletes qualify for state, and some more people are going to tell you about that.
Hi, I'm Maddie Faltazak, senior captain of the gymnastics team.
And I'm Olivia Dunlap, and I'm also a senior captain on the gymnastics team. We had a really strong team this season, and we got a lot of new underclassmen that came in.
A few highlights of our season will be beating our biggest rival, River Falls, at our home invitational, which we have been unable to do in many years.
We had one girl place first for all-around at our sections meet, which allowed her to go to state for all-around. And we also had 3 girls place for various events, and they also got to go to state. And one of them placed 10th on beam during state, so we're proud of her for that.
Our team was almost able to qualify for state, but we were unable to by less than a point. We look forward to coming back to see our team compete because of their great potential and determination that they've shown this year. We're very proud to represent our team.
Thank you.
The boys hockey team, coached by Brooke Lockwood, has their banquet tonight, so they are not here, but they continue to grow as a program, adding a JV team this year. The varsity team had a 9-2 conference record and was seeded #1 in the conference, so that was pretty exciting for them. They were consistently ranked in the top 10 throughout the state of Wisconsin, and they had 5 people make all conference teams. So congratulations to boys hockey. Girls hockey got a new coach this year. Oh, we do, sorry.
I would like to introduce to you, Ben came at the last minute, it was their banquet tonight. I would like to introduce to you Ben Bosworth, and I don't know if any of you recognize him or not. Ben was on the 2001 state hockey team and a graduate of Hudson in 2001, so is now one of our assistant coaches. Please welcome Ben.
Welcome, Ben.
Yeah, thanks. Like was pointed out, we have our banquet going on right now, so I'll just keep it short and then be on my way there. We did have a great year on the ice. We finished 19-4-2. That was great, and some of our players got recognized as all-conference players. I think more importantly, we finished second in the section with a team GPA of 3.62, which is something we really strive for, and I think it's something I learned through hockey and also building a lot of character with our team. We do a lot of volunteer work with our youth hockey programs, and getting our kids out involved in the community is something that's really important to us. So on the ice, we had a great year, and I think off the ice, everybody stayed eligible, and we had an even better year in that regard. So we only lost 4 guys, so we look forward to another strong year next year, and just a great group of guys. So thank you, everybody, for your support.
Thank you.
The girls hockey team also added in a JV team along with a new coach, Greg Gamache. They were also conference champions, so that was exciting for them, and some more girls are going to tell you about that.
I'll go first. I'll give you guys some stats because the girls know how much I like stats. I would like to say also my first teaching job ever was in Hudson in 2001. And I left because of hockey. I ended up getting a teaching position in a hockey position in Minnesota, and now hockey's bringing me back to the community, so I think that's great. I'll just keep it on a macro level, just to show you year to year. Last year, the team was 6-15-1 in conference, 1-4-1. This year, we were 15-7-2 and 6-0-0 in conference, and we won the first conference championship in the history of the school. So.
Wow, congratulations.
And I would just like to thank the girls, the parents, staff, for all the support this season. It really was a blast. It was a lot of fun. Thanks.
Thank you.
You too, and Allie?
All of us. I'm Sydney Squires, senior captain. I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunities over the last 4 years. I know a lot of us really appreciated it. Also, special thanks for our new coach.
Makes sense. And obviously, I mean, you heard the stats, and it was a really big deal, the leaps and bounds that we made from last year to this year. And I mean, a 6-0 conference record and a conference championship is something to really be proud of, and clearly it showed through conference honors. So here's Paige.
Start going back this way.
Oh, Maddie.
For first team all conference, we had 3 girls chosen to be on the team: Paige Johnson, Sydney Squires, and Allie Takkanen. And for second team all conference, we had Nolly Mullen and Sarah Cabello be nominated.
And then for honorable mention, we had Maddie Mazura and Nolly Mullen. Sorry, Julia Joseph.
Yeah, it was just a great season, and although we're losing 9 seniors from our team, we're really excited to keep on the ice this summer and continue to be an influence in the younger girls, getting them out, getting them skating with us. So thank you.
Thank you.
The Raiders team, coached by Maddie Baird, won conference championship this year, the 6th consecutive year in a row. The season was highlighted by a trip to Florida for nationals. The varsity team is at their banquet tonight, but we have some JV girls here to inform you of their season.
Hi, my name is Brielle Bjork.
Hi, my name is Taylor Draco.
And I'm Rosa Dunn. We are all members of the Hudson JV Raiders. Our team, along with varsity, practices every day to perform at local events, football games, and basketball games.
This year, we got to host the conference dance competition here at HHS. It was an amazing experience. It only got better when both JV and varsity Raiders won all conference champions and first in all of their dances.
We loved having such a big fan section and getting to see what all goes into a competition. After winning conference, JV went on to set a new Hudson record by winning state in both Pom and Jazz. We were so thrilled to be the first team from Hudson to ever win Pom. Varsity Raiders won regional champs in both Pom and Jazz at the New Richmond Regional Competition.
Both teams had an amazing season. Thank you.
Thank you.
The boys swim and dive team was led by their new head coach, Ross Campbell. They finished 2nd in the BRC, and I think we have some swimmers here to tell you about that.
Beauty first? Yeah. I just want to introduce, we have 2 senior captains, Willie Skinner and Ross Worcesterbarth, and we have a future captain, junior Mark Johnson. We had our ups and downs through this season, but we came together at the very end, and I'll have the boys talk to you about the season.
Hello, school board. So I'm Willie Skinner. I've been swimming for a long, long time, and my family has been a part of the Hudson High School swim team for a long time, beginning with my brother Jay. I think we've been in this program for 8 years, so we've had a great time on the swim team, and I just want to thank the whole school association for giving me that opportunity to have a swim team. This year we had a really, really small swim team. We had to compete against some Minnesota schools who were
like exponentially larger than we were, and we still held our ground, which is pretty cool because we have like 15 people, I think, and they have, I think like some of them have like 50 and 60, so we're doing pretty well. Ross?
All right, I'm Captain Ross Westerbarth, and I thought it was pretty cool to have a new coach the same name as me, which was really cool to have. But actually, to talk about Coach, he did a wonderful job this year. Really took the role as a players coach, where he was very good friends with the players, and he was a very good coach, and he won a sectional runner-up trophy his first year as a coach, so that says a lot about him, and hope he can stay here for a long time. Thanks, Coach.
My name is Mark Johnson, and this was my first year on the swim team. It was a lot of fun. I started not knowing anything. It was just to try to have fun, and then I started really liking it, and next year I got voted as captain, so I'm excited for another year of that. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our last sport is wrestling, coached by Chris Hansen. The wrestling team was second in conference and had an overall record of 11-3, and 3 of our state participants are here to tell you about their season.
Hey guys.
Hey.
My name is Elliot Motu.
And I'm Matthias Tobin.
And I'm Sawyer Massey.
That's all you.
We would just like to take a moment to thank the school district, the school board, and everyone else who makes this opportunity to wrestle here in Hudson possible. The sport has played a tremendous role in our lives. I assure you, we are better students and better prepared for the upcoming years based on what we have learned in our sport of wrestling.
For all 4 years, our team has been very successful. We expect to win both as individuals and as a team. That team concept is probably why we have the largest team in northern Wisconsin, and why we always have a ton of fan support. All of us had the opportunity to participate at the state meet this season, and it was truly something we'll never forget.
Again, thanks for making this possible, and most of all, thanks to our coaches and teammates.
Thank you.
Okay, that is a recap of all the sports. Lastly, Hudson School District was proud to present the Female Athlete Symposium, which took place 2 weeks ago, I believe. It was an event created for female athletes by female athletes to inform them of how to be successful and how to cope with their athletics. And it was really good. It was pretty successful, and we hope to continue that. Lastly, spring sports are starting now, track being the first one starting this week, and throughout the rest of the month we have softball, girls soccer, baseball, boys tennis, and boys golf starting. Lastly, I would just like to thank you for having us be here tonight. It's always exciting to update you guys on our success, and we're excited to bring you spring sports.
It's always exciting for us to hear it too, so thanks for coming, and congratulations to the students and coaches, parents, and everybody that supports you. You thanking us for giving you the opportunity. We thank you for representing the Hudson School District so well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes, I saw that Emily walked in.
So she can make her way through. We're going to have Emily Schertz come up to the mic too.
Classic Emily.
And Emily, tell me if I have this right. As a junior, you took the SAT. Then in the fall of this year, in September, you learned that you were a semifinalist. And just now in February, you found out that you're a finalist.
Yeah.
All right. Tell us about your plans then for next year, please.
I'm planning on attending UW-Madison and majoring in probably like biotechnology or microbiology.
All right. Good.
Fantastic, Emily. Thank you so much. So tell us a little bit about your experience with this. I mean, how did you come about qualifying for this? What did you have to do?
Well, as juniors, we had the option of taking the PSAT, and that was how they selected semifinalists. So my counselor
told me that I qualified as a semifinalist, and so did Jack, and then a couple other people got honorable mentions, and then they would review our scores after we took the SAT to see if we qualified for scholarships.
Were you surprised by the results, or did you think this is a piece of cake?
I don't know, I just kind of took the tests and I hoped that maybe they would like me.
Well, we like you.
Okay, that's good.
And I think you've done a tremendous job, and we just want to congratulate you for all your hard work and for helping us representing Hudson so well. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I think Emily's glad to be done. Okay, we'll move on to number 3, your superintendent's report. Mary.
Mr. President and board members, Governor Scott Walker has proclaimed this week as STEM Education Week and recognized the importance and the economic future of the state of Wisconsin for science, technology, engineering, and math education. And he also has recognized the collaboration between business and schools to help prepare more students in these critical areas. Certainly in the Hudson School District, I want to congratulate and thank all of our educators who have contributed kindergarten through 12th grade to the learning of our students in these 4 critical areas. We have many opportunities for students. Project Lead the Way, which we've all talked about significantly expanding that program both at the middle school, the high school, and now at the elementary as well, working on that. Our AP courses in these areas. We've had an event this year, and again, Women in STEM. That was held, you know about our STEM Plus Academy that's being implemented and planned for next year at the high school. 2 committees will be recommending this evening a 1-to-1 initiative, so we'll hear more about that with board action. And certainly as we look at the initiative in problem-based learning, bringing real-world connections to work that our students are doing, and that can really be a boon to STEM work. So certainly many, many opportunities for our students. I've just named a few. And again, we really want to recognize and thank our teachers who have contributed to the learning of our students and these opportunities over time. So congratulations to them. It's great.
Wait, great. Next.
All right, so we want to recognize, again, our staff for their generous contribution to United Way of St. Croix Valley this year. The campaign total from Hudson School District employees was $18,560 going to United Way programs. And as I've announced in the past, United Way takes 50% of those undesignated dollars that are contributed by employees and puts them into a grant pool for to support Hudson students. And in the past, that has helped with the Hudson High School Peer Helpers Program to support that, and also the elementary school's Angel Funds. So we're looking forward to those dollars, again, supporting our students over time. So congratulations, and thank you to our employees, and certainly to be able to fund those important and more programs in our community.
Thank you, Mary. Well, moving on then to number 4, reports, regional and municipal growth projections. Tim?
Okay, so before you is are some county projections for statewide, and these projections are put out by the UW Applied Population Laboratories. They do demographic studies for the state, and cities, counties, townships, and other entities use these demographic reports and projections to do their planning. But we thought it would be interesting to bring this forward to show you what's expected in the longer term, as longer term growth in the county. as you can see in the first sentence there, 57 of the 72 counties will have a population at 2040 that is higher than it was at 2010. So, and if you look at the map, unfortunately those numbers are a little bit hard to read, but if you look at St. Croix County, box with the arrow, that is projected over time to have a 41% growth rate. And if you look at the key to the right of that, those counties in red are going to be the counties that are going to be growing the most. So anywhere between 15 and 41%. So 41% again is St. Croix County, expected to have a lot of strong growth over the long term. And again, the next paragraph underneath the map does talk about strong gaining counties, really in metropolitan statistical areas, or ones that adjoin metropolitan areas. So certainly that the Minneapolis-St. Paul area has an effect on what happens in St. Croix County as well. So that's kind of an overview of what the projections look like for the state as well as the county. And then the second chart, which again is still part of the study, so it's still the same study by the UW Madison Applied Population Laboratory. We highlighted in yellow the township, city, village, etc. in the school district. So if you look at those projections over time, and for example, the city of Hudson, if you go to that middle column, about the middle, so 2010, if you just calculate 2010 to 2025, the population change is projected to be about 35.7%. And now down to the next row, town of Hudson, 26%. Troy is at 23.38. The town of St. Joe at 14.78. And then the village of North Hudson at 10.8. So there's double-digit growth that's projected. And then if you take those further out, because these projections go through 2040, and just project what is the growth from 2010 through 2040, you can see some pretty dramatic increases there. So the story remains the same. This report, this study was done as dated December 2013. So very recent information, still points to strong growth in the county, and as well if you break it down by township. So any questions?
Any questions for Tim? This is pretty impressive. Who did you say was the sponsor of this? Was this the county association?
This is done by UW Applied Population Labs, and they do demographic studies. And this is the Wisconsin Department of Administration has a study done.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question. Tim, did the statistics, I know that the previous chart showed the different counties in the state, and they had 0 to 10, 10 to 15, and then 15% to 41%. They didn't really break it down much between 15 and 41, but obviously that 41 is St. Croix County, so that was the highest in the state.
That was the highest, yes, yep. And the numbers are, again, they're a little blurry. I apologize for that, but yeah, St. Croix County holds the prize for the largest projected growth in the state.
Okay, and that's through for the next about 25 years then?
Yes. Yep.
Do they don't have any statistics that break that down into age groups or anything like that, do they?
There are more statistics. It's part of a larger report. There are more statistics out there, but you know, we thought this probably summarized it fairly well to give you a flavor for what they're projecting.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Mr. President?
Yeah, Lynn.
Tim, do you know if they're taking into consideration, or at the time of this study, if they're taking into consideration the new bridge?
I can't say for sure. I've read through some of the report. I didn't find any reference to that. I think that's been something that, according to some demographers, is a little hard to predict exactly what's going to happen with the bridge coming in. But I wasn't able to find an indication. But again, it's a part of a large report. There are many, many different pieces to the study.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Tim? Okay. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. Diane, do we have any citizens' requests to speak?
No, we don't.
Okay. We'll then move on to the topics for action. The first item we've got is consent items.
Mr. President?
Yeah, Lynn?
I'd like to have, under item number 5 on the consent items, policy 6140, curriculum development improvement, be moved to a separate action item.
Okay, so is that a form of a motion? Doesn't need to be a motion, just a request? Okay. So we'll do that. We'll move policy 6440.
6140,
I'm
Mr.
sorry,
President.
6140, curriculum development and improvement. We'll make that 7B, and all the others after B will slide down. So.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have consent items. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent items, including the language around revenues and expenditures. Dan?
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve the consent items, including giving the Director of Financial Services the authorization to pay bills in the amount of $1,889,931.21.
Okay, a motion by Dan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Lynn. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, then we will move then to now what's now 7B, policy 6140, curriculum development and improvement.
Thanks, Mr. President. Yeah. I'll start with that, then hand over to Sandy. So we reviewed this in the Learning Program Development Committee meeting, and it was unanimous kind of consensus in terms of this procedure. So it's basically, we just took the step, we just took the chance to,
sorry?
You got a question or something?
Didn't you move this?
6140?
Yep, and you're talking about.
Which one are we doing here?
It's not on there. So you're talking about this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on, because they're going before it.
I'm going to remove myself from the floor.
I'd like to do that too. So, okay, so we have policy 6140 before us. Lynn, is there any comments you got regarding this?
Mr. President, in reviewing the policy, I had concerns about the language in the paragraph that reads, curriculum and academic program updates will be made periodically to a committee of the board and/or the full board as determined by administration. I'd like the board to consider striking the words "as determined by administration."
Okay. All right. Did you want to put that in the form of a motion? Then we can have a discussion after that.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to revise the language in policy 6140 in the paragraph reading, curriculum and academic program updates will be made periodically to a committee of the board and/or the full board.
Okay. So motion by Lynn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Brian. Now, any discussion regarding the motion?
Just a clarification, that includes the revision to the policy as well.
Correct.
Okay. Any discussion? So the motion is curriculum and academic program updates will be made periodically to a committee of the board and/or the full board, period. Is that correct?
Correct, Mr. President.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the changes or the amendment to this policy signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Lynn and committee. All right, then we will move then to 7C, which is now procedure 6140.2, learning resources selection. We have Brian and then Sandy, I believe.
My apologies on that. I was talking about 6140.2.
Yeah, they're confusing.
Versus 6140. So 6140.2 is learning resources selection. It's basically, we took the opportunity to kind of look, to reflect and make sure that we have a plan for the curriculum materials that we use in a classroom, whether it be a textbook, a workbook, something online, and made sure that we kind of reviewed this procedure. And to do that, we formed a committee of 13 members. It was 3 parents, 2 administrators, and then we had 2 teachers from each level, each grade level, Nancy Toll and Nancy Dressel. So this committee kind of reviewed our procedure and put together a, we think is a pretty solid plan about how materials are kind of reviewed before we use them in the classroom. So that was what we set out to do, and Sandy can maybe go over some of the details of that. So.
Thank you. So just so you know, between what you approved on consent and then the policy, the procedure, the 6140.2, we ended up, after all our work with the committee, we had kept our policy, our curriculum development and improvement policy, made some revisions, but then under that we established 4 procedures. One dealing with curriculum guides, which again was a revision, but then this is a fairly new one, the learning resources, or again a revision from a previous one that was both selection, reconsideration, and disposal. So we had a lot of policies. We had kind of textbook selection, and then we had media selection. And as I go through a little bit about the procedure with the committee, we decided to create procedures identifying and working with each of those to help us just doing our work. And with me tonight is Joel Skinner. Joel represented the high school as a community member, and he'll give some reflection on his work as a member of the committee as well. So you might go back in time and remember that October 8th we brought to you that we were going to start the Internet Resources and Electronic Media Use Committee. And so then we announced that to the board, and then for the first month, pretty much for the rest of October then, we did some things internally. So our principals then met with staff and went over why we were having the committee, the fact that we were looking for teachers to become members of the committee. And in the interim then, we also had just some interim guidelines. So I sent an email which pretty much just said, here's some things to think about, as well as if you have any questions, talk to your principal before showing something, so that we just had that in their minds as they were moving forward. The principals also had about 3 questions they asked staff, and they also collected that information. Then on October 24th until November 8th, we posted, or Tracy posted, information saying that we were looking for parents to serve on the committee. We collected those names. We actually had enough that we had kind of a high school, middle school, elementary. We put them in a hat, and Diane pulled names, and we ended up with a representative as well as a what do I want to call it? An alternate, that's the word I want. And so Joel Skinner is our high school representative. Then we looked at, our first meeting then was November 21st, and at that one we looked at the policy. For the most, it was the one on school use of video presentations, which you just deleted actually. So when we got together and we looked at that first policy, that's what we kind of thought we were going to do, it just led to more questions. Well, that's just on video use. What about YouTube videos, and what about textbooks, and what about other? So then we started pulling out the media selection, then the textbook selection, and it just seemed to make sense that we try to combine things, hence the title Learning Resources. So no matter what a teacher's using, from a textbook to supplementary materials to showing a video, DVDs, it kind of is under that umbrella with the criteria that's in that new procedure. We also then looked at the teacher survey results, when they answered the questions, and that's when we kind of started looking at the criteria. We started generating themes out of what the teachers said, and then kind of kept wordsmithing and revising that. I worked with Nancy Sweet then to come up with just a general draft of policy. At our next meeting, we looked at that. We kind of had this amazing wordsmithing session. I don't know if you can imagine 12 people enjoying wordsmithing, but I had that group. We had a great time doing it. And then Nancy Sweet and I met, and we incorporated some of their suggestions. We were obviously looking then at sample policies from other districts. What did WASB say? Members around the table, some of our administrators also reviewed and offered suggestions, and we ended with the policy as you see it. The policy and procedures then were brought to Learning and Program Development, and now here this evening. So I'll let Joel give you a little highlight too. Kind of took the show.
Thanks, Andy. Oops. I feel like I've snuck in here under false pretenses just a little bit because Sandy wanted me to speak about the process. I think she covered it pretty well, but I just wanted to say thank you to the board for inviting parents to be involved in this process. A lot of times I felt like I was being called to advise a carpenter what hammer they should select, or skill saw, or a surgeon to pick their scalpel. Textbooks and learning materials are that important to teachers, but I'm not a teacher and I really don't know what it's about, but I'm glad parents were involved. We spent a lot of time looking at the process, and I would urge you to adopt this. I feel really comfortable that this is going to be improvement. There was a little bit of scattering of prior policies. I think we've clarified it, made it simpler. When I approached the process, I kind of look at it as, who are the people doing the choosing? When are they going to do it? What, defining what learning resources are, textbooks, video resources, electronic media, and so forth. I learned a lot about that, but we chose it. We did some pretty careful selection. I think it's going to be a benefit to the board and to principals, teachers, library media specialists, and the committees of the board and teachers who select these things. I think it's going to make their job easier. I think it's going to result in better learning resources for the kids. So just want to mention real quickly the other parents involved were Matthew Olson, who's a parent of an elementary school child, and Katie Knutson, who represented the middle school. And then we were working with teachers, administrators, Nancy Toll and Nancy Dressel from instructional technology professionals. I think it was a really good process. Again, I'd urge you to adopt this new proposal. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them also.
Any questions for Sandy or Joel?
And can I also just state, to follow up, pending your action this evening, then I would be going out to staff, sharing the criteria. We've already kind of taken the criteria portion of the procedure and put it in more of a format of a checklist so that teachers would have that and they could use that as they're making decisions.
Okay. Any questions? Jamie.
Mr. President, I had a question on the upper right. It references the current procedure or policy, and then it has WASB code 361. And so my question is, was that code basically a template, if you will, or something to compare this particular policy with?
That's a good question, Jamie. I want to say what my memory has is that Nancy Sweet had a grid, because WASB had gone through all of our policies and procedures, and in that I think their coding is different than our coding, is what I'm recalling. Mary's shaking her head, yes.
But I guess my point is that WASB does suggest that you have separate criteria for selection, separate criteria for disposal.
And reconsideration.
And reconsideration.
There are still some districts that have it all into one. We just made the decision to pull them apart. We thought that made more sense.
Okay, any other questions or comments? I remember kind of talking about moving into this discussion and formulating this committee to look at the policy. The challenge that I think we had was that we have such the benefit of such a vast number of resources in technology and things like that today, and our concern was that by striking a good balance is what we were trying to get to in terms of what was acceptable, what was clear, so that teachers could have a clear path to, kind of making some determinations. Of course, we have things in this policy that indicate it requires authority, our approval above, but I'm just wondering if you had that kind of discussion in your meetings, and if you feel like you've kind of been able to strike that kind of balance.
And Joel can say, probably comment as well. We definitely had discussion as a committee on how to set criteria that would be clear enough as they're looking, again, non-print, print, electronic, whatever they're looking at, as well as how do you also let the teacher teach and be the professional that we've hired them. And so that was a major part of our discussion. Okay. Do you have anything else?
Absolutely. But I want to add one thing. Most of the material in this proposed new policy was in the prior policies. We were just consolidating it. Like the criteria were there. I don't recall that we really changed anything or threw anything out. We just clarified it, brought it all together, and applied it to all the different kinds of media we defined generically as learning resources. Sure. So the criteria were there. I don't think we changed any of the decision makers. They were all in the prior policy. I think reconsideration was addressed. I think we spent a lot of time on that. I'm just looking at my color-coded notes on what the proposal turned out to be. Yeah, most of it was already there. I think we just massaged it into a more clear, we looked for anything that might be vague. We struck that out, but there was nothing really substantive. It was just some kind of connectors. We spent a lot of time trying to avoid anything that could result in an ambiguity. Right. Could it be this or could it be that? We said this. It was there. It was just unclear. So we made it more affirmative and positive. Yeah.
I suppose it's difficult to avoid ambiguity completely, and so there are probably measures, I imagine, in the policy where teachers can check it and go through some other channels to check and verify or that type of thing as well.
Correct. And you'll still find in there too, it pretty much does still state too, if you have any questions or if you're showing it to a larger group of students, make sure your principal's involved. Yeah. So that's right in there as well.
Any other comments or questions for Joel or Sandy? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Okay. We have a motion by Brian and a second by Dan to accept procedure 6140.2 learning resources selection. So, any other discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you both. Thank you, Joel, for your participation in this and all those that helped you, and thank you, Sandy. So, all right, we are then moving on to item 7D, procedure 6140.4, disposal of learning resources. Again, Brian and Sandy.
Yeah, this one's pretty simple, as we have, and hopefully this will be a thing of the past as we move to a one-to-one with technology of disposing of old textbooks and encyclopedias that no one's opening up.
Editorial comment.
So anyways, we have old textbooks. We need to find a way to make sure we dispose of them properly. If there's any revenue to be associated with them, we put it back in the general fund. So this is a pretty simple one, but does anyone go into any details on this?
Not too much. Again, it's blending both, though. That there was a media one. In the media language, it's called weeding your books in your media centers, and then the disposal of anything else. And it just pretty much gives some criteria of if it's outdated, in poor condition, hasn't been used. Those are things that we can then use to pull. Tim also reviewed this one along with Nancy Sweet, just to make sure, because Tim's obviously the overseer and wants to know what we're doing with district property. So in essence, that's what we're doing. So every 6-7 years, we tend to purchase new textbooks via departments. Occasionally there's a textbook that a used book company would want. There's not a lot, but we generate some dollars. So again, this just clarifies that we do have authorization to sell to a used textbook company and or some of the private organizations that also take used books.
Okay. Any comments or questions regarding this procedure? Dan?
Mr. President, just a comment. As I read this, I couldn't help but think of, Dave, help me out because he's fellow Kiwanian. they have a connection with Books for Africa, and I'm guessing you guys have probably explored that already, but they're always in need of textbooks, especially, you know, these types of learning textbooks. So I hope when we're looking, certainly if we have the opportunity to, you know, turn them back and generate some revenue, that's great. But if we're looking for a donation, that would be one entity that would be willing to take them. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. Good comment. Anybody else? Okay. I'll entertain a motion regarding procedure 6140.4.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Brian and seconded by Jamie. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor of accepting the procedure 6140.4, disposal of learning resources, signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thanks again. Appreciate all your time and energy and work on this. So,
thank you.
I think we beat the 6-month requirement too. Okay, so moving on to 7E, advancing HSD 2025 innovation with technology, one-to-one proposal. And Brian, and then I think Dave, right?
Yep.
Got that one?
So, yeah, we got some details to work through on this, but you know, we've been talking about this for a long time in terms of you know, bringing technology in the classroom. It's more than just bringing the technology in. It's how do you use it. Are teaching staff ready to have the right curriculum to really take advantage of it? And so we want to make sure we're, although there's a lot of momentum around bringing a one-to-one experience to our students, because that's the way they're gonna work in the workplace. They're not going to be getting a textbook, or you know, they're going to be you know, working on a computer. But we just want to we want to be thoughtful how we do it, less from a budget standpoint, more from making sure that it's not just a bunch of students showing up with a laptop and not having a kind of a curriculum that takes advantage of that. So I think we have we looked at a couple different proposals here. We once had a 9th grade and a 6th grade, but I think you'll see here that we have a little bit of a modified proposal that I think would really help having a really successful kind of first year. And then we'll learn a lot from that, and we can use that to pivot for subsequent years. So, I'll, you know, from this point, I'll let David kind of handle from here. So.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're very excited to bring this proposal forth for your consideration, and as Brian had mentioned, it's been something that's been in development for a long time. Before we begin, I want to thank a few people for their work on this proposal. First of all, Nancy Toll, Technology Coordinator for the district. She's put in a tremendous amount of time and supported the development of this proposal very significantly. And a lot of names we've actually mentioned already tonight. Nancy Dressel as well, who's our current technology integration coach, put in a lot of time, as well as our technology integration leadership team, which is a collection of leaders throughout the district that are dedicated to advancing our efforts to integrate technology into the learning experience for our students. So a lot of people, and there's one more that I want to mention, and you may recall a few months ago a very compelling citizen's request to speak. And it was a student from the middle school that spoke and was speaking out of concern for our bring your own device policy, and speaking to the fact that he felt in order to be fair and equitable both to students and to teachers, that it's important that we invest in technology and that we don't rest on the laurels of a bring your own device policy, in that can't guarantee that all students have access. He was incredibly eloquent, and it was very compelling. And honestly, this proposal was underway, but his words are echoed throughout and considered. We've brought him up numerous times. It was a pretty special event that night, and his thoughts are definitely included in this proposal. And as we get into the proposal, I want to make it clear and echo what Brian said. This is much more than a proposal about bringing forth devices, because devices in and of themselves will not significantly impact student learning. It takes much more. I hope you'll see that reflected in the proposal as we dig in a little bit. So first of all, I want to start with taking a look at our media and technology vision statement. This statement was actually developed quite a few years ago by our technology council as well as our media teachers, and it reflects our vision and what we feel we need to do in order to move towards HSD 2025. We've talked a lot about technology already tonight, from STEM initiatives to policies reflecting the way technology changes. And as Brian said, we cannot think about our students' educational experience without including thoughts about technology, as it's completely critical to advancing their learning. So you can take a look at the goals. And again, these goals were not developed directly for a one-to-one initiative, but they're very much connected, creating, communicating, and interacting with resources, content, global experiences, and collaborative relationships, engaging in powerful personalized learning, demonstrating, informing, and assessing learning through multiple authentic and meaningful ways. We've considered these goals as we put this proposal together. Additionally, we developed more specific goals, very specific and pointed towards technology integration. And I'll just highlight some of the key ideas there. Again, it's all about maximizing student learning. We'll dig into how that, what that looks like in a little bit. Taking advantage of digital tools that provide greater opportunity for collaboration, providing more authentic and personalized learning experiences, utilizing up-to-date information, helping students achieve media and technology literacy, and then finally providing greater and more efficient access to electronic information by having always-on digital learning environments for students. So specifically what we're talking about here is a one-to-one Chromebook initiative. A Chromebook is a simple laptop essentially that you don't load separate software on. Instead, it operates in the cloud. And that simply means that you're accessing software that's housed outside and you access it via the web. Chromebooks are a very cost-efficient tool, and they open up opportunities for collaboration that are quite powerful. We're looking at, again, a one-to-one initiative, which by definition means every student has access to the device. And then furthermore, a little bit of the lingo, it's a 24/7 proposal. What that means is that students would be bringing their devices home with them so we could extend the learning opportunities beyond the constraints of the school day. An ancillary portion to this proposal is increasing access at the elementary level. This proposal does not directly address access to the elementary level, but in an indirect way it does, and we'll dig into that a little bit as we move forward as well. When we speak to the goals of this initiative, this graphic summarizes the goals, and each one of these areas is spelled out more completely in the full proposal. But we're going to take a look at that red circle at the top. Transformative learning environments and experiences that reflect HSD 2025. What we mean by, I'm going to start with the learning experiences. Obviously, the heart of teaching and learning is about the learning experiences that our teachers develop to create opportunities for students to learn. Those learning experiences are critical, but they can't work by themselves. We need to have an environment that accepts and supports those learning experiences. Increased access for our students is part of that initiative. In the purple circle there, you'll see improved technology integration skills for teachers. Again, going back to what Brian was mentioning, we can't rest on the laurels of just increasing access. That's not going to be enough. We need to work with our students, but we also need to work with our teachers, and this plan includes professional development that will support our teachers in their ability to integrate in meaningful ways. And then in that green circle there, you see increased student engagement. In the learning environment, increased student engagement equates to increased student learning. We know that technology can be an engaging tool, and we aim to harness that energy and that enthusiasm within this proposal. Now to some of the specifics, and this is without a doubt probably the most confusing part of this proposal, trying to convey what this all means. So you're going to see parenthetical references and all sorts of stuff there, but essentially what we're looking at is the rollout plan. You can see it starts next year, 2014-15, and the way to read this grid here is the grades that are in, or the areas that are in parentheses, represent the grade levels that would be new to a one-to-one learning environment. It does not speak to the rollout of the actual devices, which is a technical side that's handled differently. But you can also see the way it grows. And the ultimate goal would be by the 2017-18 school year, you would be operating at a one-to-one environment in all secondary grade levels. So the first year, you'll see we'd roll out to the 6th grade. In addition to that, we'd roll out to the STEM Plus Academy, which would be the 75 sophomores that have applied and been accepted to be part of the STEM Academy. Again, connecting back to what we've talked about earlier, STEM being science, technology, engineering, and math. And in our case, that plus means a little bit more than that. It's the applied arts, it's the manufacturing. It goes beyond just the original acronym there. And we have 75 students that will be part of that initiative, and we feel that if we're committing to a technology-rich learning experience, those devices need to be in the hands of those students as well. Also, freshman academy teachers, and then 2 portable labs with 30 devices each. The portable labs are we call them computers on wheels, or cow labs. These would be Chromebook cow labs, meaning we'd be able to roll in the 30 devices and teachers would be able to access those. Although we're starting at the middle school and rolling up, we also feel it's necessary to have a quick burst infusion of access for our students at the high school and allow them some time to prepare for this initiative to roll up to them. And then it gets a little more simple as we move on. You can see we would then go to rolling in 2 grade levels at a time. You'll see in 2015-16, 7th and 8th grade, as well as the Healthcare Academy. Healthcare Academy, similar to the STEM Academy, obviously with the focus on healthcare. I have long argued that healthcare cannot be separated from STEM. There is no healthcare without science, technology, engineering, and math. So that's important to include in this consideration as well. And then in 2016-17, we start rolling up into our high school grades, 9th and 10th grade. 2017-18, again, finishing out at 11th and 12th grade. 2018-19, we said we begin the refresh cycle and then the elementary infusion. I'll explain that a little bit. What we mean by a refresh cycle is we hope to get 4 years of life out of these devices. We've conferred with other districts and believe that's a reasonable expectation with some additional care and procedures that we'll need to put in place to ensure that we maximize the life expectancy of these devices. So after 4 years, then, we would retire those devices and then bring in new devices. The elementary infusion simply means that in that year, we would actually only have to refresh 1 grade level. If this were, when we look at the proposed budget, you'll see there would be dollars available for a significant elementary infusion at that time. Again, in preparing our students for this sort of learning, we believe that a 4-to-1 ratio is sufficient at the elementary level for now. That may need to be reconsidered as we move forward, but we believe a 4-to-1 ratio is sufficient. We've analyzed our current ratio and believe that that infusion would help us get there. Having said that, it's important to know that we would also be investing, as we have been, into our elementary system. This isn't the entire investment in technology. The rest would come out of the operating budget that has been in place for IT. This graphic here represents the professional development focus for this one-to-one initiative. The graphic there represents sort of a funnel and a way to think about the way we deliver this, this professional development. Google Apps for Education is an incredibly rich opportunity and very cost efficient, in fact free for educators and educational institutions. The Google Apps for Education offers a very rich collaborative environment, and you may be familiar with Google Docs and some of the other real common Google Apps for Education, but there are many more than that, hundreds of apps actually that are focused on education, and all of those are free. Now there are some other applications that you do charge for, but all of these are free. And we feel if we invest our professional learning here, we'll have a very focused and powerful professional development scheme. We'll get into the specifics of how we would roll that out in just a bit. Now that next layer is curriculum specific, and earlier Brian alluded to the fact that we need to make sure we're updating our curriculum to reflect 21st century skills. We currently have a few content areas that are, they take advantage of technology. Most specifically would be our secondary social studies, all of middle school, and then a few of the courses at the high school. And it's part of the TCI curriculum, which is an online curriculum that students access access, and it actually works very well on a Chromebook. So what that means is students would not have a textbook for social studies. Instead, the information they would access on the device. We're currently doing that through a modest investment in devices at these grade levels, as well as the bring your own device policy, which has helped, but in talking to the teachers, they believe if all students would have access to those devices, they'd be able to more fully integrate and capitalize on the benefits of such a curriculum. And then finally, that purple triangle down there, although it's small, it's critical. That's the individual, and I refer to that as innovative invitational coaching. And what that means is we have teachers that really want to pursue innovative opportunities involving technology for their students. The way they can do that and support themselves is they can go to our technology integration coach, which was a new position that was supported last year through some reallocation. It's been a tremendously powerful position. We've had immediate impact. And our technology integration coach can then work with these teachers and support their innovation. An interesting thing, the model for technology integration coach and their delivery doesn't start with technology. The first question the technology integration coach asks every time that she works with the teachers, what do you want your students to learn? That's always the first question. And then it's how do we build a system and how do we capitalize on the benefits of technology to help support that learning. And you'll see some comments about technology integration coach in just a few minutes here. Real quickly, the delivery here, and I just want to point out the fact that although the technology integration coach plays an integral role in the delivery of professional development, it is not alone. You'll see that students are at the center, obviously. Student learning is always the focus, and we have several rings of support there that can support the students in their learning efforts. First and foremost is that first ring, the teachers. We need to support our teachers as our teachers support the students. And as I just mentioned, we have a lot of innovative things that are happening right from the classroom level. The next layer there would be the Technology Council, and they play an important role in supporting teachers as well. We'd like to increase that role and provide some opportunities for the Technology Council to play a direct role of support for our teachers and our students. Media teachers at all levels and our other instructional coaches and principals have all dedicated themselves to this as well. And then that outer ring would be our instructional technology services, learning support services, and then again the technology integration coach providing the high-level leadership to ensure that we have the support and the infrastructure in place. Metrics for success, we'll look at 3 different areas, all aimed at the graduate learner outcomes of HSD 2025. One would be the metrics built into the technology integration plan, student indicators, and teacher indicators. I'm going to speak primarily to the student indicators as that's the primary goal. And we're focusing on the ISTE NETS standards. This is just a quick list of the overall standards. These are well-developed standards that we can use to gauge our progress with our students. We would develop metrics that would help us measure the student learning in these areas. So you can take a look at the different standards. And when I read these, you'll hear the words of HSD 2025 echoed quite significantly. Creativity and innovation, communication, collaboration, research and information fluency, critical thinking, problem solving, decision making, digital citizenship, technology operations and concepts. It's no accident that technology operations and concepts is the last one listed. That's, again, it's learning first, the support next. Now we'll get into some of the specifics. With this plan, staffing support is absolutely necessary. Although this is an incredible support and will undoubtedly advance student learning if we would move forward with this proposal, it can't be done without increased support, especially for the grade levels that are new to a one-to-one environment. It's very exciting, very promising, but it will require support. So that first line there points out the 0.5 technology integration coach. So this would be a proposal for increased support in the area of technology coaching. This individual would be assigned directly next year to 6th grade. So it wouldn't be just spreading out the services and increasing in an incremental fashion. Instead, it's dedicating those resources directly to those teachers. So 6th grade teachers could count on having that support of a technology integration coach half-time all throughout the year. The middle two, I'll just speak briefly to. These are adjustments in staffing that would be necessary. The first one, we have found that the support for technology-based curriculum is significant, very powerful, and long-term will be a little bit easier and more seamless in support, but it does require some background support, and that's that 2-hour increase that you see there. We also have the reallocation of our AV technician, which is currently a 192-day contract, to an IT technician to a 260-day contract. That's more a reflection of the times. We don't have the AV needs that we had in the past. AV is so integrated into the overall IT infrastructure, it really isn't a separate entity anymore. And our current AV technician is actually already investing time and in his own professional learning, taking some classes and taking advantage of resources to develop his skills to be able to serve in a different capacity. And finally, the .5 technician. This is kind of the bookend to that technology integration coach. Just as teachers need support in their ability to integrate learning experiences, they also need the support on the technical end. This individual would work to make sure that things are working the way they need to work. So we don't have to stop learning when a device goes down. That would be their primary responsibility. And to the budget. So all of the numbers here in terms of the projected investment are approximations. We've done our work to make sure that we are as close as possible, but they are approximations. And the way we read this, if you look across the top, you can see again the new grade levels to a one-to-one environment. That comes right from the proposal that we looked at earlier. You can see the first year we're looking at 603 devices. We're estimating about $295 per device. That includes the device. It includes there's no software you load on the device, but there's a subscription that's necessary to be able to control those devices remotely. It's quite powerful, and it's actually pretty slick. What we can do with these Chromebooks, if there's an update or an application that we think will advance student learning, with a click of a button, we can send that out to all the devices. If the student is at home, attached to their Wi-Fi network, if they're at Caribou Coffee, attached to their Wi-Fi network, that update will go through. We don't have to recollect the devices, re-image them, or load software. It happens automatically, and that's included in that price, as well as some moderate protective gear to help protect the devices. And then there's the staff and salary investment, which we spoke to just on that last slide. Professional development, we have an annual professional development proposal of $10,000 annually. This would go to the certification, primarily to a certification for a train the trainer in the Google Apps for Education. We'd like our technology integration coach, as well as other leaders in the system, to be certified Google trainers. We believe that'll be our best chance to reach that top layer of universal professional development that I spoke to earlier. And then some ancillary expenses, hardware support, the carts, the chargers, that sort of thing. And then finally, the last two columns there. You can see the total annual investment. Again, these are approximated dollars. That first year, $315,000. The way we read this then, that next column, annual incremental investment, simply means when we look from year to year, if we would consider that first year the baseline, the additions or the savings from that point forward. The following year then, 2015-16, would be the most significant investment at $453,000. That's because we're adding another grade level. That's when we flip into the 2 grade levels per year. And then you can see the approximations as we move forward. And then finally at 2018 and beyond, estimated at an investment of about $398,000. The interesting thing about this proposal, so we're saying a 4-year refresh cycle. As you know, technology moves very quickly. And there is no way we can guarantee in 4 years that Chromebooks are going to be the answer. Right now, we feel they are. That could likely change. The good news is technology is the one area that prices go down when we talk about personal devices. That doesn't happen very often, but technology prices are continually driving down, so we believe that this is a sustainable plan and that those dollars should be sufficient to support the plan as it's put together now. There are some potential savings in the future. Although this plan is not intended to be completely offset. I don't want to pretend that it would be. This does require investment, requires commitment. However, when we're operating at a full one-to-one environment, there are offsets. An example, we talked about textbooks. Right now, that's not a significant offset because they're about the same cost, whether you talk about a subscription to an online textbook or to purchasing an actual paper textbook. But copying is a good example. We can significantly cut down our copying and paper expense, which is significant. There are several others. On the learning side, an example of a potential savings is when we have students that are in intervention or require learning beyond what the core can provide, often these interventions are delivered through technology. Currently, we either need to pull students out of their classroom, find a different environment, or actually purchase devices for students. That would no longer be needed at the secondary level when we could actually deliver the intervention through the device that they carry with them on a daily basis. So those are just a couple examples of possible savings. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Dave or Brian?
Mr. President?
Yes. Sandy.
I made a few notes here. That was a very good presentation. Thank you. What about access to sites that are objectionable, that parents would not want their kids on? Are these Chromebooks able to be blocked so that they can't access all kinds of sites?
Yes, they are. That's one of the side benefits of Chromebooks. There's a safe search feature, which is SEPA compliant, which is those are the regulations we use to ensure internet safety. These devices are actually protected whether they're on our network or at home, and that's part of that council. So another benefit of the Chromebooks versus other devices.
Okay, great, thank you. And then the replacement program, as I see this program starts out in 2014 and goes through 2018 until everybody's ramped up. And then again, you have to start right away in 2018 or 2019 and start replacing software. So is this going to be an ongoing expense every year that we have to constantly be replacing these Chromebooks?
Yes, that is accurate. That's the 2018 plus. That so indicates from that point forward, it would be that approximately $398,000 investment, and that is ongoing.
Okay, and who's responsible for if they get damaged or lost or the kid drops them and the screen breaks? And who's responsible? Yeah,
that's a good question, and ultimately it is a parent responsibility, but we have some safeguards in place. As an example, we're exploring an optional insurance that parents could purchase that would protect the device against breakage, spill, even theft, and so forth. Now, we've invested pretty significantly in Chromebooks already. We have quite a few in our system, and there has been some accidental damage. The most common actually is the device getting stepped on, believe it or not. That's the most common way these devices get broken. And although we can't guarantee, in fact, we can't even pretend that we would have no breakage, that's not possible. We would provide some training and support to help students to minimize that as much as possible. But ultimately, just as a parent would be responsible for a textbook or a library book, if it's lost, stolen, water damage, if the backpack gets thrown in a puddle, they're responsible for the replacement cost. That would be similarly applied to this device. Now, obviously, it's a bigger ticket item, and that's why we want to offer the insurance. We would also then, just as we've in this past year provided devices for students that are on our free and reduced lunch program, we have that opportunity. We would also offer this insurance to families that meet the criteria to ensure that they're not burdened by that extra expense of the insurance.
So there will be some funds available for people who are lower income who can't handle the cost of the insurance?
Yes, actually those would be reallocated funds because we would no longer need to purchase devices for these students as the grade levels roll up. Those dollars could then be applied to the insurance.
Okay, do you have any idea what the insurance might cost?
We're looking into it right now. We're getting some different numbers. I'm in contact with a few different organizations. The most common is about $30 per year. What we're trying to do is find an amount that is obviously is reasonable, but we also need to watch the deductible. So those are some of the things we're looking at, and we'll be exploring several different vendors to see who can give us the most cost-effective program.
Okay, and just one other question. Have you done any research on, or looked at any other districts nationwide who have gone to this type of thing and found out what the result has been and if they're happy with it and what's going on with other districts?
Yes, actually quite a bit of research. Some local research calling districts, local districts in Minnesota and Wisconsin. But more significantly, we're looking at Project RED, which is Revolutionizing Education. It's through ISTE, and it's an organization that studies these programs on a macro level and finds out what makes them successful and what makes them not successful. Most significantly, it's the investment in professional development and curriculum is the biggest factor. But we've analyzed those results as well as calling individual schools. Now, having said that, most of those are based on a traditional laptop one-to-one initiative, which are quite a bit more expensive just because of the price of a laptop versus a Chromebook. But there are several districts and some in Wisconsin that we've consulted with that have gone to Chromebook. They don't have a long enough track record to have a real solid view of where they're going, but we feel the advantages of the Chromebook kind of transcend that, and we'll be able to guarantee success.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good questions.
Mr. President.
Yeah, Dan.
I just wanted to follow up on some of the comments that have been made, and going back to the insurance and thinking about how we handle some of the other activities within the school district, whether it be band instruments, you know, athletics. It's not unusual for us to expect at least some kind of a deposit or, you know, have some so-called skin in the game. I'm wondering if we've explored that. And when we were talking about the insurance just a few minutes ago, would it be asking too much for the folks like myself, you know, with kids that could potentially make that annual deposit to go towards the insurance to provide that protection? And then those students, just, you know, based on need that can't afford it, that's where we would, you know, cover that expenditure. I'm just wondering if we've explored that, as well as, you know, grant dollars that might be available for this type of a program. I would think in the world of technology that there must be some grant funding that might be available. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and that's those are things we have explored and will continue to explore. The reality with the grant dollars, there are grants available. Most often they are dedicated for districts that are in economic need. Our demographics don't necessarily make us eligible for many of those grant dollars. That's not to say that there aren't some available. We'll continue to look for those. As far as the insurance, I wasn't clear with that. That is actually self-funded from the parents. They would be paying that for that insurance, although it's optional. So, but it would be highly enchraged.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. President.
Jamie.
Can I just
go ahead, Dan.
A couple other comments. We've had these Chromebooks in the district for a few years, correct?
A few for a few years, or a year and a half, but a significant amount this entire academic year.
Okay. How has the pricing changed over that period of time? We show here $295 per device, and I'm assuming if we're going to buy a large quantity, we could probably negotiate a pretty good
That's what we're hoping. Chromebooks are actually priced really uniquely, different than most technology. Different manufacturers can make a Chromebook, and they're priced in tiers. So like Samsung, they have a certain price range. HP has a certain price range. So we will be developing an RFP and look for competitive bids with the specifications that we need, and we hope to drive the price down.
Okay, last question. If, let's say, a parent says, you know, I don't want the Chromebook, I want, you know, my child to use some other, you know, device, laptop. Would that just not work given the software, the updates?
Correct. Now, that's a really good point, because there's a few nuances to that question. First of all, they'd be welcome to bring in another device in addition under the bring your own device policy, and that would be something that's encouraged. You know, bring your own device is great, and it has its place, but it can't be the sole solution. So now we will have a situation next year at the 6th grade where if a student has an iPad, that's going to be an excellent augmentation to the technology in that classroom. But the teacher can count on providing learning experiences with the Chromebook. So that's the first piece that I would add there. Secondly, as students become more advanced and as we continue to increase our offerings in the area of computer science, specifically in coding and software engineering, will need higher end devices for those students. Those would probably be accessible through a lab sort of environment, but not exclusively. We may need to consider different devices for students in the future. But for the early grades, we believe this sort of device would be more than sufficient.
Okay, thank you.
Jamie.
I guess Sandy had a lot of the questions that we asked at the committee level, and that's been brought out. And just to build on maybe Dan's comment, wondering to help, offset the burden on the taxpayer, whether or not some type of program where, an insurance program where if the parent puts down a deposit at the beginning of the year, and if the device is returned unharmed, that they get at least a portion of that back. Maybe not the whole thing, but a portion of it back, and that way you could fund it. I know that there's some auto insurance programs that are similar to, after 5 years of no claims, you get half your premium back or something like that. But that's what I'm kind of thinking of is a way to offset that cost to the taxpayer.
Sure. Yeah, that's something we can definitely explore. I mean, we're really open to whatever we can do in the most cost-efficient manner to protect the parents from that liability of the device. We don't want that to burden any families, so we'll definitely look at that.
Right. And the one observation I made, I'll repeat for the general meeting, was that at the UW level, I have 2 children that go to UW Stout. Their laptops are required, and it's not like an option where a parent can say, well, I want to buy my own laptop at a reduced cost. It's not. The UW charges, it's about $400 a semester to use a laptop, and then it lasts for 2 years, and they get a new one after 2 years, and so forth. So I think that offering choice, that could create some headaches, and we want some uniformity and ease, because doing this only part way, just buying the devices without the professional development, doesn't make any sense, because if you don't know how to use it, you're not going to use it in the classroom.
Correct.
So.
Okay.
So, Mr. President, I just have one other question that came to mind as hearing the conversation. Would this device be able to be used for all of the classes that a student's enrolled in, other than Phi-Ed and that type of thing?
That's a great question. We're working on a process of building essentially the level of expectation for use. Yes, the quick answer is yes, because it's a very open platform that isn't content specific and allows students to collaborate on whatever it is they're learning about. There would be applications at all levels. In fact, you mentioned Phi-Ed. At the high school, we have a member of our tech council that does incredible things, and there's actually several Phi-Ed teachers at the high school that use technology and integrate it in their learning experience in a very direct way. So even in that environment, it could be used. Now, it wouldn't be all the time. Obviously, you wouldn't want students hauling their Chromebooks down to Phi-Ed every day, but it could be incorporated. So what we want to do is establish expectations for student use, not only in an individual class, but also throughout the day. We want to guarantee that on a daily basis, students are engaged in rich, meaningful, integrated learning experiences. And but part of that is reliant on the collaboration between the teachers. We would see this also opening up opportunities for collaboration between the teachers. So learning experiences wouldn't then necessarily need to be kind of segregated into the experience in one classroom. So we would hope that and encourage, and in fact expect, that the devices be used throughout the day.
Okay. And then one last thing.
Sure.
Are they going to, do the devices talk to each other? So like if you got a student in math and a student in English and they've got their devices, they could be talking back and forth during the class? Or it's not like texting or anything like that, is it?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, because you access you're on the network, there would be that ability. We can't say that it wouldn't exist. As an example, you could have a document open and you could have students in one class working on the same document at the same time. So although there would be potential for misuse, as there always is, and whether that's, it's no different from passing notes, on paper, those risks exist. But that's part of the professional development, helping teachers understand how to mitigate that risk and how to be aware of those sorts of things. But quite honestly, when we look at the risk-reward sort of ratio there, the potential for reward is far greater. So again, we could have, in 6th grade in a house, you could have all the students really working on the same integrated experience at any given time using the device because of the way that they communicate with one another.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other any other discussion on this or questions? This has been a pretty thorough undertaking, and I really appreciate all the work that's been done by our professional staff as well as our lead here with the board, with Brian. If there isn't any other questions, then I think we're ready to accept a motion on 7E, Advancing HSD 2025 Innovation with Technology, one-to-one proposal. So,
move to approve the one-to-one proposal as presented tonight.
Motion by Brian. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Lynn. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks again for all the good work, and it's exciting. I mean, we've been talking about this for quite a while now, and it's good to see it really start to emerge.
The team did a really good job with the proposal,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
so,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Okay, so moving on to our last action item, which is 7F now, selling all or part of the district-owned county UU property. As I think the community's aware, we've been looking at sites, looking at a site particularly focusing for a secondary solution, focusing first and foremost on the site that we have within our possession, and that's been the UU property. There's been quite a bit of study with the help of professionals to help us understand the feasibility of that site. The board has had a number of different board work sessions looking in detail about the potential of UU site. We have virtually about 125 acres in total. About 88 acres of that is very, very hilly and very challenging for us as we come to that conclusion. And now we don't think that it's really has a feasible use for us, with the exception of a portion of it, which was purchased back in the late 50s, I believe, about 25 acres. It's fairly flat and might have some potential for the district in terms of an elementary school in the future. So, the board has been in work session about this. We've talked about this, and I think there's a fair amount of consent from the board that we need to probably sell that property in total or in part, and so they also felt it important to bring it before this meeting and in public to have that discussion and review. So I'm going to ask Tim to maybe talk a little bit in some of the details regarding that.
Yeah, Tom, as you've mentioned, the board's done a tremendous amount of due diligence on the property. Looked at a lot of studies, spent a lot of time looking at how to make the property work for a larger secondary development. And because of all the topographical changes and things that occur in the prime development areas of the property, it becomes very difficult, slope restrictions and those types of things. But as you consider this, one of the things that we thought would be good to keep in mind is, Tom, as you mentioned, the 26 acres, which was purchased in 1959 for roughly $1,600. It doesn't have any carrying costs. It's the size is very conducive to an elementary school. If you take Rock, for example, it sits on about 25 acres. As I mentioned, no carrying costs. There's no expense to carry this land. To replace that land in the future is going to cost significantly more should you need it in the future. And I would just point back to the demographic study and looking at that growth in the county and in the township, city, et cetera. It's really pointing to growth. And so in the real, looking at that longer term view, possibly keeping that 26 acres would be very advantageous to the district should, as the growth continues, you need to look at an elementary. The piece that is that would be considered for sale is about 86 acres roughly. So you're looking at about a total of 112. So 26, roughly 26 is the portion that fronts Crosby Drive. And then the 86 is back a little bit. Part of that's back off of UU and around the around Crosby Drive as well. You had some information regarding market study of the value of the property, and we'd recommend that you look at the 86 acres, selling the 86 acres, and recommend a price of $2 million, an asking price of $2 million on that property. And then there's a sample resolution here as well, if you'd like to use that. We would look at really starting out on the site, marketing the site internally here, and doing signage on the site, putting information on our website. Of course, the Star Observer's here tonight, so there'll be coverage that will generate some additional information out in the public. We probably have some interested parties in that site. So we'd recommend that we try for sale by owner path first on the property. So I think that's it.
Any comments or questions from the board? Or
I have a question. What is the, you talked about no carrying costs on the older portion of the parcel. For that 85.77 acres, approximately how much is still owed on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can give you a real approximation. To get any further into it is going to require a fair amount of analysis by some of our bond advisors, because the property was purchased as part of a multi-project referendum. So, but right now it looks like there's probably somewhere in the neighborhood, I would say under 1.1 million is owed left on the bonds on the property at this point. And again, looking at what the options are, if you sell that, essentially the two options are that you would take the proceeds and put those back against the debt on the property, or you can also use the proceeds if you use them within 2 years, you can use them towards another capital project. So either way, with both of those ways, you wind up with some taxpayer relief the way you use those funds. But those are the two options that you have with the proceeds from that sale.
And again, refresh our recollection on the original purchase price in what, 2001?
Yeah, 01. It was purchased for about $1,857,000.
Okay. Any other comments, Sandy?
Yes, Mr. President. It was purchased for $1,857,000. and we're going to try to sell it for $2 million. What will happen if we're not able to get that $2 million for it?
Well, you don't have to sell the property immediately. There isn't a timeline on this, but what you're doing is putting it up to see what kind of interest there is and what we could negotiate with any interested buyer at this point.
If we're not able to get our cost out of it, will we still sell it?
That's up to the board. You would still go through a process. If there's an interested party or parties, we'd negotiate a price. We bring that back to the board, and if you decide that the price is acceptable, then what you do is you would approve moving forward with the purchase agreement, and then the second step of this is you would have a special, or at the annual meeting you would have the electors come up and they would take action to authorize the sale.
Oh, okay, so the sale of this has to be authorized by the electors?
In the end,
in the
yes.
end,
Yep.
right?
The board does have approval over the price, over the details of the purchase agreement, et cetera, but the electors would authorize the sale of the property.
Okay, I wasn't on the board when Rivercrest was built, but you mentioned that this property is good for an elementary school. I think that's probably why the district purchased it in '59. Just for my own information, can you tell me why it wasn't used for an elementary school when Rivercrest was built? I'm just curious. That's the only reason I'm asking.
The district had this property as well. And at the time, looking at where the growth patterns were south, this was the location, the best location to build the elementary.
Okay. I would just make a comment about selling this property. I believe when the task force did their work and when this property was purchased, it was, if I recall right, it was not purchased with the idea that there would ever be a 4-year or 3-year secondary school on it. I think it was purchased, wasn't the idea of it being purchased for a junior high at that time, a 2-year school?
There were a number of different options floated. I think one was the assumption that an 8-9.
That's what I thought. That's what I remember, an 8-9. Okay, so since the 8-9 school is off of the agenda, that's not going to happen. I would go along with selling this because I think if we're not going to use a piece of property, we need to get rid of it. I'm disappointed that the 8-9 option isn't on the table because the property would work for that. But because it's not on the table, I will be approving the sale of this property as long as we can get what we've paid for it.
Okay. Dan.
Mr. President, just a question, Tim, and I don't know if we've discussed this or not, but maintaining the 26 original acres and then selling the 86, have we considered whether or not we'd want any additional acreage as a buffer? So if we do put a school on that 26 acres, or do we feel like there'd be a sufficient buffer so that if we did sell it, something else went into those 86 acres, that we would have a pretty good...
I would say, depending on if you stick with something such as a 500 or 600 student elementary, you've got adequate space there to keep that buffer. And of course, that 26 acres is a good flat site, but I would say you've got adequate space.
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Mr. President, just one comment. I just wanted to, since the 8-9 topic came up tonight, I just want to reiterate the Wisconsin municipal projections are in growth, right? And the reason why the 8-9 it just doesn't meet our space requirements in terms of 35% growth over up to 2025. In the city of Hudson, the town of Hudson is 26% growth. The town of Troy is 24% growth. And that was the reason why, the 8-9 option wasn't put forward, just by the rapid growth, and it would be back at it again in a few more years, and the taxpayers would be asking, why didn't you make a long-term choice decision versus a short-term?
I think it was pretty clear too from the sampling that we had with the survey that was done too, in terms of what the community is directing us towards as well. So,
Mr. President,
Sandy?
I would just comment on Brian's comment that he's saying that the 8-9 option was taken off the table due to these growth figures, but we just got these growth figures. The 8-9 option was taken off the table months and months and months ago. We just now got these growth figures, so you can't really correlate the two.
No, I think you're right. You can't do that with these particular figures, but when I came to town to start a YMCA, the figures were like 20% growth by year 2020. So it's some form of figures have been kind of facing us for a long time. So I thought, anyway. Anybody else? Okay.
Mr. President?
Brian.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education does hereby place for sale district-owned property near the intersection of Highway UU and Crosby Drive in the town of Hudson. Said property is approximately 85.77 acres, and the asking price will be $2 million. Proceeds from the eventual sale of the property shall be used for local property tax relief.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Brian. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Lynn. Any other discussion?
Mr. President, I would just have one question.
Sure.
I would go along with the sale as long as we can get close to what we paid for it, but if we have to take a very much lower price, my vote would be different. So can we add something into this that says that, or is that not right?
Well, I think we have that safeguard. I hear what you're saying, and I would agree with it. I think we have the safeguard, though, that any final approval will be
we still have to approve anything final, and the voters have to vote on it. Okay.
Right.
All right,
yeah.
all right,
Yeah,
thank you.
You're just putting it up for sale.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. We'll do a voice vote. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Good discussion. All right. Committee reports. We'll start with Dan and the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance Committee had a number of items, several of which we've ticked off today. The HSD 2021, the one-to-one multi-year plan, the two policies, 7200, 7600. And then Andrea walked through a preliminary staffing recommendation with us that showed, I think there are several tiers of priority, and many of which had to do with increased enrollment in the middle school, demand for an AP class at the high school, increased enrollment, trying to conform to new state standards, assessment implementation, increasing access in need for another program, school safety, had to do with another one of the requests. And they all sort of relate back to the staff planning administrative recommendations that this board has seen before as it relates to the criteria that we use in developing our staff planning, which includes HSD 2025, of course, continued efforts to improve the system for higher student achievement, maintaining class size guidelines where applicable and possible, realign staff and resources through allocation, reorganization, and/or reduction based on priorities and needs, provide operations to support high quality and continued improvement efforts, add staff for enrollment growth, use staff attrition where possible when positions are reduced or eliminated, legal requirements, and implementation of high school learning of the future. So I think this preliminary recommendation reflects our desire to stick with those planning goals. Andrea, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, I would just say that you guys will be seeing it again next month, but we appreciated the preliminary input.
Yep. It was, I think, and I think the committee thought it was well thought out, and of course we got the color spreadsheet, which I always like. So anyway, that's going to come back to us, and the board will have an opportunity to discuss that further and ask questions. And then lastly, the committee reviewed the 2013-14 budget update. Not too much difference from the last time we looked at it last month. I think we're pretty much on track with our budget, correct, Tim? And I think the only thing that I can remember from that discussion was, we saw increased costs as it relates to, the harsh winter, snow removal, energy costs naturally reflected a little higher than normal. So was there anything else, Tim, that you wanted to add?
No, I think you covered it, Dan. Thank you.
Okay. That's all the Finance Committee did.
Mr. President, I just had a question. So to clarify, the quote budget update was merely how are we doing year to date for the current budget, not looking for at 2014, 2015
That's
yet.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions of Dan or the Finance Committee?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Okay, we'll move then to the Learning and Program Development Committee with Brian.
Thanks. We met on March 3rd, on Monday. We reviewed the procedures and policy changes that we voted on today, either a consent item or as individual procedures. So I'll skip those. Then Sandy talked about a crosswalk, so that's basically getting some credit for technology, education, and math for particular 2 courses there. And we had consent to kind of move forward on that and to bring something forward. And then finally, or not finally, we did the one-to-one that Mr. Grambo presented tonight very eloquently. And then finally, believe it or not, we talked about increment weather makeup days. We have 1 more day in the bank account, so we can get through 1 more day without having to, so we're not going to need more than that. But
it's amazing.
Except for the high school, where say that again, Mary?
They make up minutes right away.
They make up minutes right away.
Yep.
But
any minutes lost, student contact minutes lost, the high school would make up.
Okay. So the high school doesn't have a day. Everyone else does. So if we needed to do a increment makeup day, which we don't, right now we don't need, but in case we do, we'd probably use the April 18th. So, but again, that's not something that is on the books right now, but we need to have a backup plan, and that would probably be the backup plan that we do.
And April 18th is that Good Friday?
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
But any other comments on that, Mary?
We would just be communicating that to staff and to parents and to just let them know. Certainly, as Brian talked about, we have 1 more day district-wide. High school's in a little different situation, certainly, but we would have to have 2 days to actually use before April 18th to use that day.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't want to alarm anyone right now. We're just, but in case we need an extra day, it's that versus, spring break.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Brian or anybody else on the committee? Okay, then I'd entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session using the specific language as it's indicated on the agenda.
Mr. President, move to adjourn to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85, parent 1, parent C, preliminary notice of non-renewal of certified staff, and E, deliberating for negotiating the purchase of property.
Okay, motion by Lynn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Sandy. Do a roll call vote starting down with Jamie.
Johnson, aye.
Robson, aye.
Holland, aye.
Bell, aye.
Gerke, aye.
Motion carries. Thank you all. We will not be coming back to open session.